Hello, and welcome to the Wellness Connection podcast with Fiona Kane. I'm your host, Fiona Kane, and today I'm going to be talking to you about things that get in the way of happiness. So I've covered some of these bits and pieces before, but some of this is new. But essentially, so many of us, our happiness, we don't realize how much in control we are of our happiness and how much we expect other things to make us happy when that's not really going to happen. So I'll be talking about that today. So I wanted to start with basically it's mindsets that lead to unhappiness, right? And so the first thing I wanted to talk about is unmet desires, right? So what I see and hear a lot is people say, I'll be happy when. And I know I've been guilty of it as well. So I'll be happy when I get married or I have children or I get a certain job or I have a certain amount of money or I live in a certain place or I have a certain holiday, do a certain thing, whatever it is. But it's the I'll be happy when. The problem with the I'll be happy when is, first of all, it really limits you if for whatever reason that thing doesn't happen. Does that mean you're never allowed to be happy? So there's always the thing if that for whatever reason that thing doesn't happen in your life. But the other thing is it's what they call it actually is they call it hedonic adaptation. So what happens is you achieve the thing, especially if it's like something you're going to buy. Like I own the thing, I have the thing, I've got the new car, I've got the house, whatever. You achieve it and you're really happy for 5 minutes, but then you're not so happy anymore, so you want the new thing. And if you don't think that's something that's real, just, look at any situation of anyone who's made it big. Suddenly they're a millionaire, billionaire, whatever, and suddenly they've got lots of money. And so they get the Lamborghini and they get the fancy house on the ocean and they get, and they get the private jet, and that doesn't make them happy. They have just 5 minutes of fun and then it's, oh, okay, all right. Because things actually don't actually make you happy. And the thing is too, because of that um, adaptation, that hedonic adaptation, what happens is you need something bigger and better every time. So the thing that made you happy this time, it's got to be bigger and better next time, right? So, and they get bigger and better. And, I see this happen with people do things for their children. I've seen people do these, $100,000 parties for children for a fifth birthday or something. Like, how are you going to beat that? And that sort of thing does happen. So it's like every year they do something bigger and better for the child, and eventually the child, nothing's exciting for that child. Nothing is good enough. So the problem with I'll be happy when is it puts your happiness sometime into the future, and it's subject to this or that, right? So it's again it's putting your level of happiness somewhere outside of you in a situation that you may or may not reach. And so it's kind of it's reliant on other things. It's not an internal thing for you. It's you reliant on other things to happen. So that doesn't work. And ultimately what happens is every time you achieve it, now you want the next thing. And the same thing happens. So that's sort of I was talking about before, probably more, the hedonic stuff is more about things, but then you have the same thing happen with goals, right? So goals and things can be obviously there's a crossover there, but it could be your goal of a certain job or a certain achievement or a certain course or degree or something that you've done. And the same thing happens there, though, is that when you achieve the goal, it's just like you move the goalpost, because the goal is like, it's great, I've achieved a thing, and it's now, oh, okay, it's not making me happy anymore. I've got to do the next thing. And, and I'm not saying also that there's anything wrong with having goals and achieving things and actually keeping yourself motivated and keeping moving. Nothing wrong with that at all. But what I'm talking about really is just your association with whether or not you're happy and whether or not that's actually going to make you happy. And the truth is, that's not what's going to make you happy. So when our happiness is reliant on achieving the thing before we can be happy, that's not going to happen. So again, it's understanding that happiness is an inside job. It doesn't come from this outer thing that you do. If you can't be happy with who you are and who you are now, if you can't be happy while you're pursuing your goals, you're not going to be happy when you achieve your goals either. Simple as that. So what we need to know is that, happiness is an inside job, like I said, and happiness actually comes from gratitude. So gratitude, just having acceptance of where you are now, but also gratitude of what you do have. So so it might, you might not have the Lamborghini, or you might not have the job you like, and you might not be where you want to be, but you can be grateful for the fact that, I can be grateful that I've got this podcasting set up. I can be grateful that I've got some people that listen to and watch my podcast. I can be grateful that I have hot water, so I was able to have a hot shower. I've got electricity and got running water, and I've got food, and I've got clothes, and I've got a safe place to live, a safe place to be. I've got work, etc., etc. So I can sit here and list all of the things I don't have and wish that I had, or all of the achievements I don't have and wish that I had. Or I can list all of the things that I do have now and I'm very grateful for. And I'm grateful that I can see and hear and all of those things, right? And I can walk. And I think I've referred to it on here before, but, even just things like I changed my attitude towards going to the gym. One time, because I used to be quite whingy about going to the gym or doing exercise. And I was at the gym one day. I may have told this story before, I'm not sure, but it's worth telling again. So I was at the gym and I was doing my usual grumbly sort of thing, I do this workout, and I was going to go I was doing the weights and everything. And when I finished the weights, then I can go and jump in the pool because I love the pool. And the pool is my reward for doing the weights. And so I was doing this and having, a bit of a grumble. And then someone came in, with their carer. It was a lady with, I'm not exactly sure what was going on for her, but I suspect it's something like spina bifida or something like that. But anyway, she was not functional on her own. She needed a carer to bring her in, and that carer had to put her in various positions. So, lay her in this position so she could do those weights, and prop her up in that position so she could do that thing. And essentially, this carer had to sort of do it for her and get her in place, all that sort of stuff. And then afterwards, I went into the pool, and then, however long later, her carer sort of wheeled her into the pool area, and then, it's not only that, but her carer had to take her into the bathroom and change her clothes and put her into a swimwear, and then bring her into the pool area, and then get her out of the chair and into the pool, and get in the pool with her and help her in the pool and all of that jazz. And I just thought, wow, it's so hard for her to get to the pool, right? So not only she relies on somebody else completely to take her there and to change her clothes and to help her do the exercises. And my guess is, with her condition, she probably has a certain amount of pain associated with it as well. I don't know, but I'm guessing that might be the case. And you know, basically she's got to have someone do, and later on in the change rooms, and limited amount of privacy because she's got to have this other person help her, whereas I can just nip in and out of the change room and do what I like. So that from that day onwards, I've had such gratitude that I can get in my car and drive down to the gym or the pool, or the gym that's got the pool, which is my favorite one, or I can go out and go for a walk. And generally speaking, obviously we've got life and we've got work and all the rest of it, but I can make those plans myself. I can decide when I want to go. I don't have to rely on somebody else to take me and get me out of my chair and place me in position. And so ever since then, I've seen it as, oh, I get to go to the gym. And and I'm doing the exercise, and I go, I get to feel this pain. I get to, right? Because not everyone gets to, right? So the thing that you whinge about, so I was painful, this or that, and whatever, is the thing that somebody else wishes they could actually do. So, that is sort of the gratitude. Gratitude does not mean you can't try and achieve goals and you don't want to move to a different place. But essentially what, it means that you're choosing to be happy right now. You're not relying on some external factor to be happy. You're actually choosing to just be really grateful and happy. And it's amazing how much, when you count your blessings, how rich you realize you are, as opposed to when all you do is count what you perceive, what you believe you're missing out on, right? So the next thing that's so the first thing that we just talked about there is that unmet desire and that I'll be happy when, that is a real happiness killer, and it's a really good idea to get rid of all of that I'll be happy when stuff, and know that you can actually be happy while you are trying to achieve that goal, while you are making the plans, while you are on the way to achieving the goal. You can be happy now, and choose that now, because no one ever knows how long they have and what's around the corner in life. So choose to be happy now, because you can choose to be happy now. So the next thing is that can really take away your happiness is when we compare ourselves a lot to other people, and we always kind of look around and kind of go, oh, that person's got it better than me, and that person's got it easier than me, and all that jazz. And that may be true or it may not. I don't know, because you never know the full story of somebody else's situation. The truth is that there's always people who are better off or that look like they're better off. There's always people who are worse off. And, you are where you are. That's simple as that, And, I could, I come from a background where I grew up in a fairly not very well off family. Let's just put it that way. There wasn't a lot of resources. There wasn't a lot of cash there wasn't a lot of opportunity, right? So I wasn't, I wasn't having, music lessons and swim lessons and lots of sports and I didn't have all the musical instruments and all the fancy things. I'm not saying I didn't have anything, but there was a lot that I didn't have compared to some other people I look around and I see that they have those things. I lived in an area that was a lot further away and harder to get to the city and harder to get work. And I lived in an area where if you rang up and said, for a job, you used to ring up to get a job. You rang up to say for a job, and you'd say where you live, and they'd say, oh, because it was a bit of what was classed as a bit of a dodgy area or like a low income, low class area, and I had all of the challenges that I had with my family. We all have our own version of those challenges, and I had those challenges, and so we all kind of have this, like, we start in a different place, maybe based on all the challenges we have in our life. Now, there are a lot of people that started, their starting point was way ahead of me, right? And I for a long time, I kind of just focused on those people. I was like, it's not fair. How come they got the starting point way up there and my starting point's way back here? It is what it is. And there's people whose starting point is way, way back. And when I say forward and back, I don't mean it as a judgment in like better, worse, or whatever. But just some people get a bigger springboard in life, and other people don't. It's just simple as that. That's actually just life. And again, I could only focus on the people who I perceive to be ahead of me, but there are people who don't have as many resources as me as well. And I was lucky because I'm sort of bright enough to be able to overcome that. And I live in Sydney, Australia, and there's opportunities here where it doesn't matter where you started, you can overcome things and you can achieve. So, you know, again, I could focus on, oh, I didn't and shoulda, coulda, woulda, whatever. But I focus on okay, what do I have? What can I do? How about I do that, right? And so happiness killer is when I kind of go, it's not fair. They all got it and I didn't get it. And yeah, you can sit in that place forever, but it's not going to achieve anything. So how about kind of just going, okay, these are all things I have got. Wow, okay, I've got all these things. Let's just go with that and just move forward, right? So, and the other thing is the other sort of happiness killer, or the other kind of really toxic thing, is comparing yourself to others in a different way, as in comparing yourself to others to make yourself feel better in a really kind of judgmental way. So it's like, oh, I'm a better person than that person, or I've achieved more than them. I could look at them, they're pathetic. Look how wonderful I am. So it's another way that we can do comparison, but it's quite a negative way to do it, and it's quite a judgmental way. And I think that that's sort of it's very poisonous. Those sorts of attitudes. Excuse me, I just had a drink. So it's, run your own race, be where you're at. And everyone, you might not realize it, but everyone does have things, barriers and things that hold them back that you don't know about as well. We all think we do know, we all think we can see. There's lots of barriers and lots of challenges that people have that you know nothing about. So just because it looks like a certain way on the outside, it does not mean that that is how it is. And I know because I talk to people about their stories all day, every day, and I've read lots of autobiographies, and I know that the people who you think who have the best and greatest and easiest don't have it. I mean, just look at the stories of people, like Britney Spears, right? Oh, wow, she's got everything and she's became famous at 16, blah, blah. Yeah, it's not as simple as that, right? Definitely not as simple as that. She's got a complicated story. I don't pretend to know it all, but obviously it's complicated. And she's now, I think, got some pretty severe mental health issues and big challenges. And I really feel for her, not saying it as a judgment, but we just don't know what people are dealing with. So, oh, well, she was in the Mickey Mouse Club and she got to be there with Justin Timberlake and Christina Aguilera, or however you say Aguilera. You know, yeah, great. But she also has lots of challenges, right? And has had lots of challenges. No one's got it perfect. So, comparing that comparison thing it can be really toxic. So if you compare yourself just from a perspective of, if you want to achieve a certain goal and you want to look at what you need. So I'll give you an example of a healthy sort of comparison. I just saw a film about, sorry, I don't know the name of the film, but the film was about a man who was him and his family were you call them farmers, or like they go and pick the fruit, that seasonal farmers, something along those lines. And I think he might have been Mexican or from some Spanish speaking country south of the US. I think it might have been Mexico. And anyway, ultimately, he became an astronaut. Long story short, right? Watch the movie. It's a great movie. But part of the story was his wife. At one point, he was comparing himself to all these people who were applying, and he kept applying to be an astronaut, and he kept getting knocked back, and he kept applying and just kept failing. And his wife said to him one day, she said, "Well, look, what are all the things that the people who are applying, the people who are getting through, what do they have that you don't?" And so he went through and looked at the list of what they had and what he didn't have, and said, okay, well, they've got pilot's license, they've done a diving course, they have another language. I think it was Russian was a very important one because that's where the space station is, or at least was. I'm not sure. And so that comparison was useful because the comparison allowed him to create a list, so he could have a list of things to do for himself. So if he was just like, oh, yeah, 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 but he just he used that comparison as a way to say, okay, what do they have? Okay, these are the things I have. Okay, what can I do about that? I'm going to go and start learning and doing some of those things. So that's what he did. So when you use a comparison as a way of like more of helping you understand what you need to do to achieve your goal, or helping you create those steps to get there, then great. But if you're kind of just sitting around going, oh, it's not fair, those comparisons don't help. So the other sort of happiness killer is the expectations, the unmet expectations. So it's like it should be like this, or it's supposed to be like this, and we get very caught up in how it should be. I should be in this situation. It should be like this. And I know that this is one I've been very caught up on in recent times, with all the different challenges I've had with my business and financially, and all different things that have been going on in my life. I know that I've spent a lot of time saying to my coach, it shouldn't be like this, or it should be like that, or I was supposed to be doing this, and I was supposed to have achieved this. So I get it. I'm doing it. This is something I do, I've done, that I'm very aware is a happiness killer, right? So I'm not saying this because I'm perfect. I'm saying it because I'm learning, right? So this whole supposed to be or should be is a real happiness killer. And essentially, I just heard this saying, it's like, so what that causes, the shoulda, coulda, and it's supposed to be like this. It causes what's called a happiness gap. So the happiness gap is the space between reality and an imagined reality, right? So the happiness gap is the space between the reality and the imagined reality. And if we, if you're not realistic about where you are, you'll have a lot of unhappiness about it. If you say, oh, it should be like this, and I should be, and there's lots of shoulds in this world, but the truth is that, as John Lennon, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. So you might have plans to go in one direction, but sometimes life takes you in another direction. And, you can either complain about that or get on with it. And actually, it was a story this morning. There's an example of that this morning. I was at a meeting, and I won't go into details about who the person was because I don't want to talk about their business. But essentially, this person, they were promoting something for their business. They were promoting a specific thing for their business that they were trying to sell. And she's worked really hard to promote this thing that she's trying to sell for her business. And ultimately, I think she said she sold a couple or something, but she just was really struggling to sell that. However, she got all of these opportunities that came out of it. So while she was busy trying to sell this thing over here, and she wanted to be doing this thing, she got all these other opportunities for her business out of the sales process. So she got a lot of great opportunities for her business, but just not the ones that she was looking for. But there were still ones that she could use, and they were opportunities, right? So she could be sort of lamenting about, oh, only sold a couple of things and I failed, and it's so. Or she could be saying, hey, I got all these great opportunities. Isn't this amazing? I thought I was looking for this and I found that. And, isn't that amazing? Like, what can I do with these opportunities, which is what she's doing. So again, you can look at the same situation and kind of go, oh, it's poor me, or you can, find something of value in there. So the other thing is understanding with all of this too is to focus on what you can control and what you can't control. Because, like I just said, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. So, what I wanted to, there's a couple of different quotes that I wanted to talk to you in regards to that. And I was just looking for one a moment ago that I had here. Where did it go? No, it's gone. Okay, so the first one, when I was just saying to you, focus on what you can control, that always reminds me of the serenity prayer. Like, whether you're religious or not, it's actually just a really useful prayer. Obviously, the first word is God. It's God grant me. If you don't like that word, use a different word, whatever works for you. But essentially, it's God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And it's a useful thing in life to actually to understand that, because there's a lot of things we can't change, but there's things we can work on. And what it always comes back to, and what I always talk about on here, is focus on what you can do. It's always focus on what you can do, rather than stressing about what you can't do or what you have no control over. So just focus on the things that you can do. So another really great quote was from Marcus Aurelius, and he was talking about that if you are pained by an external thing, so something in your life that's not going how you want it to go, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. So it's in your power to erase this judgment about it. If anything in your own nature gives you pain, you are who hinders you from correcting your opinion. So I might just read that again. If you are pained by an external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your own judgment about it. It is in your power to erase this judgment about it. If anything in your own nature gives you pain, you are who hinders you from correcting your opinion. So essentially, he's saying if you're unhappy about a situation, it's the way you think about the situation that's causing you the unhappiness. So it's about changing the way you think about it, which is what I was just talking about in regards to my friend and her failure slash opportunity, right? She had both. She had, something that was a perceived failure, but then she also had an opportunity. So, and she could have just seen it purely as a failure, or she could see it as an opportunity. Another one here is, I think I'm saying his name right, but I think he might have been a slave back in the times of the Greek times, but please correct me if I'm wrong. Epictetus, Greek or Roman times, maybe he was in the Roman times as well, Epictetus. We suffer not from the events in our lives, and I haven't got the second part of it. I'm pretty sure it's we suffer not only from the events, but from our attitude towards it, or from our, again, what Marcus Aurelius was saying, from the way that we interpret it, from the way we think about it. I don't have the other half of that in front of me. I won't go looking for it now. But same thing, right? So it's not about the event. It's about how we perceive it. It's what we say to ourselves about it. It's how we talk about it, how we think about it, and whether or not we see that event as, oh my God, it's terrible, or hey, what's the opportunity in that event? So it's really, really important to look for opportunity. And I'm going to finish. There is I think I might have mentioned this before, but there is, or can I find it? Yeah, here it goes. So there's a parable about, it's a parable of a Chinese farmer. So Once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer whose horse ran away. That evening, all of his neighbors came around to commiserate. They said, "We are so sorry to hear your horse has run away. This is most unfortunate." The farmer said, "Maybe." The next day, the horse came back, bringing 7 wild horses with it. And in the evening, everybody came back and said, "Oh, isn't that lucky? What a great turn of events. You now have 8 horses." The farmer again said, "Maybe." The following day, his son tried to break in one of the horses, or break one of the horses. I'm not quite sure the terminology there while riding it. He was thrown off and he broke his leg. So the neighbors then came and said, "Oh dear, that's too bad. It's terrible news, terrible thing that's happened." And the farmer just said, "Maybe." So the next day, the conscription officers came around to conscript people into the army, and they rejected his son because he had a broken leg. And again, the neighbors came around and said, "Oh, isn't that great news?" And he said, "Maybe." And essentially, what he's saying is, whether something is fortune or misfortune, it's not always clear in the moment, or it might be clear and it still might be something that, like, it might be something that's terrible, it might be something that's a misfortune, but it doesn't mean that on the other side of it, it won't turn into something good, or it won't create something good, or it won't create an opportunity, or it won't create a learning experience, or whatever it is. So the way we a lot of whether or not something is good or bad in our lives is in how we perceive it, how we talk about it, how we perceive it. Our perception really, really matters. So in summary, essentially, the way you think about it, the way you perceive it matters, and you really can make it good or bad depending on how you perceive something. And really, that I'll be happy when, I'll be happy if, I'll be happy when, or it should be, or it's supposed to be. All of those things are happiness killers. It's like learning some gratitude. Gratitude is one of the biggest cures for all of those things. Having some gratitude, having some perspective, and choosing, and knowing that you're allowed to choosing to be happy now while you're trying to achieve the goal, as opposed to "I'll be happy when I do achieve the goal." And this also actually applies very much for weight loss goals. I've seen it all before. "I'll be happy when I'm a size such and such" does not happen. If you can't be happy with yourself while you're trying to become a size such and such, you won't suddenly be happy with yourself when you get there. So what you can do is choose to be happy now while you're trying to achieve a goal, whatever it is. So anyway, I hope that was useful, and I will talk to you again soon. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and all that jazz. It really helps me to promote the podcast. And if you've got any ideas or of other topics I could do, or if you have any comments, or anything to offer, I'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.